Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel, and today is a little bit of a different video because I'm going to be working on this cylinder head, and this has come off the MGB project which I've been doing, and it's one of those that this is a job that I really should have done a while ago before putting the engine back in, but lack of foresight, and it's one of those things, because what's basically happened is put the engine in, everything's all connected up, and come to start it and it doesn't want to go. So it's sort of gone through all the different sort of tests and things that you can do to test to see what's going on with the engine, why haven't we got why isn't it firing up. So we've done compression tests and found that there was very low compression, so then do a wet compression test, which is where you pour a little bit of oil down the spark plug holes and no change. So okay, we need to have a look and see what's going on with this. So I've had to pull the cylinder head off, and basically it's down to sorting out the valves. So I'm going to show you today basically how to clean up and lap in the valves on one of the cylinder ports on the cylinder head. So let's get into it. So first things first is I've already done a number of these already, which you can tell, or might be able to tell on the video, but these are nice and clean, and these are still caked in oil. So the first thing we need to do is actually to remove the cotter pin, which is easy enough to do because most of them will actually just come off quite happily. Well, it's one of those, don't worry about them coming off so easily, because the shape of the top collar is tapered so that it fits the two inner collars. So we need a special tool for this job, and that is a valve spring compression tool, and it looks something like this. Basically it's like a giant G-clamp. And all you do is you put one side in and feel that it's onto the valve base, and then with the other side, as you can see, you just wind it in until you get it onto the valve springs and just hold it there. Now, because we are playing with springs, things can go mad, so it's a case of put some safety goggles on just in case anything decides it wants to try and blast off into the next dimension. And then all you do is just wind it in, so you're compressing the springs. Now, there are different designs of these, but this one has worked quite well for me, and you should, with a bit of wiggle, be able to get out the two collet pieces that hold it all in place. So just put them to one side, and then very carefully and slowly just ease back the spring until you are free of pressure. Like so. So obviously the pressure's off now, so we can get rid of the spring compressor out of the way, and then obviously we can just pull off the springs. This is the type that is double springs, so that means that there's two springs in there, which is like that. And there should be another rubber seal on there, but it seems to have disintegrated and disappeared over the years, and all we need to do is just push the valve down and pull it out. So we can see on the end of the valve there that it's absolutely caked in rubbish, isn't very good. So the valve seat on the back of the head is probably just as caked in rubbish, which is probably a reason why we're not getting very good compression. So I'm going to take all those parts over to the parts cleaner, so that they can all be cleaned up, and then I'll get the other side out, and then we can have a look at where we're up to next. Okay, so now I've got both of the valves out. I've given the whole area on this side a bit of a clean, so now we need to have a look at what's going on the other side to see what we're going to be doing. There we are. So obviously when we come to do this job, we need to make sure that it's sitting fairly flat. And I've got a little mini work bench here which is doing the job quite nicely. And if I just grab hold of the camera, I'll be able to show you the underside. So these are the two valve cylinders that I've already done, which is fine. So this is the one that we've taken the bits out of, the valves out of it, and you can see here the valve seats are, they're in a reasonable condition, but they need a good clean up, and this is probably the main reason why we're not getting a good compression. It's because it's just, you know, it's full of rubbish and, you know, bits of rust and things like that. So we're going to need to give this a bit of a clean. So So first job on it will be to clean out as best as we can all the loose stuff. So just with a scraper you can just go in and just clean out all the loose stuff from in the ports, top of the cylinder and that, because there might be some, and all this kind of stuff, and you can see on the end of the scraper there's quite a bit of rubbish there. All this kind of stuff can, if it works loose, get caught in the valve gap, and you know, cause you to have problems. So it is good to make sure it's clean. And yes, I do understand that the surface for the head is a bit grubby at the moment, but that's because it's been out of the off the engine for a few days or so, and it's just got a little bit of surface rust and gunk on it, so it's nothing to worry about. That'll all clean up quite nicely when we come to actually put it back on. So clean up. So that's that bit done. So I'll grab a rag and just give it a good clean out. Just move the light up a bit so I can see what I'm doing. As you can see, it's not taken particularly long to give that a good clean, you know, quick once over in there, and that. So the next little job I'm going to do is just run around the inside where the valves actually seat with just a little bit of sandpaper, and that is literally, I'm not going in very hard with it. All I'm doing is just getting that top layer of dirt and gunk off, so I'm not trying to sand the metal away, I'm just getting it clean, getting rid of the high lumpy bits that might cause us a few problems. And already you can see it's starting to look a lot better. So you might be thinking, well, why have you taken both ports out, both valves out? Well, it's easier to do this with both of them out than having one in the way. It just makes life easier. Right, so I'm quite excuse me, quite happy with those now. So just give them a final clean out. So they're then ready to start the next process, which is the actual lapping of the valves. So I need it that way around. So let me go and grab a valve. Right, so I've cleaned up the valves, and this is the exhaust valve, and you can see we've got the nice sort of surface here, which is where the valve actually seats in the head. So what we're going to need to do is rematch and clean up the valve seat, and to do that we need to do what's called lapping in, and to do that we have two types of paste. We have a coarse paste and we have a fine paste, and all we need to do is, starting off with the coarse one first, is have a little bit on, and we just put a little bit around, all the way around that seat area, that shiny area. You don't need vast quantities on there, but enough on there. So those are ready for that. Get that out of the way, and obviously make sure you put it in the right hole. Let's let the valve go down. So the traditional practice is to have one of these. This is a lapping in stick, and the idea is that it should form a seal on there, and you can then rub it back and forth like so, and it will lap the valve in. Unfortunately, they very rarely actually stick to the valve, so they are a bit of a waste of time, in my personal opinion. However, with this little stand that I've got, I can actually get my hand underneath to the valve in question, and I can actually turn it from underneath. So if I apply a little bit of pressure on the top and turn it underneath as well, you can see that it's doing the job quite nicely, and you just got to kind of feel and listen to it to see how it's going. And sometimes it's worthwhile just lifting it up and pushing it back in at a different position, and then going again with it. It takes a bit of time and a bit of practice, but you do get there eventually. With it. My hand's slipping on the bottom of that now. Just a bit of oil must have run down. What we're essentially looking for at the end, if I can pull that out, it says, is for round the edge on the valve and in the seated area as well, is to have a nice fine line all the way around that's showing, and that will basically show that we've got a seal is starting to grow on there. So now I've taken that out, I'm just going to give that a quick clean. And we can already see on there that this valve seat has cleaned up very well already, and it's quite nice already, but it's going to need a little bit more work on there. So put a little bit more again with the coarse paste, on there. I don't need to probably do as much as we did last time. Let's get some on there. Go and have another run through it. You don't need to go mad with this. If you've had the car running previously on the head, you don't need to go mad with it. Chances are it's going to clean up pretty well and pretty easily, so you don't need to go mad with it. Some people will, but you don't need to. Just work it as best as you can. And you'll eventually hear and feel the difference as it smooths itself out and creates that better, finer seal on it. And you might even be able to hear that already, that has changed slightly. So once we've done it a couple of times with the rough paste, we can go on to the finer paste. But as you can see there, again, we've got a nice line all the way around, and we've got a nice line again on the inside. So let's clean all that off, both surfaces, and then we should be able to have a look at putting some fine paste on. So the reason why we go with the coarse paste first is because it breaks down and gets rid of the big lumpy stuff. Then you go to the finer stuff to get that nice final bit of a better seal on it. Also to clean out all the inside of that. And this is very important actually, that you do get all the grinding paste out. So the last thing you want is grinding paste getting in to the engine works, that is then really will cause you problems. And you might be able to see there that it's come up really quite well in there, and that's just with the coarse paste. So hopefully with the fine stuff which we'll put on now, basically do the same thing again, it should polish up a little bit better, a little bit more. You won't necessarily have it absolutely sparkling. So again, this is with the fine paste now, and you can see that it's not as blobby, I suppose is the reasonable term, as the coarser paste is. It's obviously a much finer paste. As before, you don't need gallons of the stuff on there, just enough to do what we're going to be doing. Off we go again. it might be one of those you might need a few attempts at this. If you've never done it before, you need a few attempts at it, and it also obviously depends on the condition of your valves as well. So as you can see there, that looks pretty reasonable on there, and again it looks pretty good on the actual seat as well. So let's just clean off the valve head. As you can see, it's not actually taking a very long time to do the actual lapping in. It's one of those, you can spend a very long time doing it if you really want to, but I think you only need to do as much as you need to. And again, you can see on here, this has all just been cleaned up now. Again, it's got a nice finish is coming up on there now. So that again is showing us that the grinding paste is doing its job, and we're going to hopefully get a nice seal on there when we come to put it back together, and all being well, we'll get some decent compression this time. Once more on this one. So basically I do the rule of the run through the lapping in twice on each type of paste, so twice with the coarse and then twice with the fine. It's not a particular rule, it's just the way that I do it, but obviously, you know, if you've been taught a different way, then that's fine. But yeah, you just keep going until you know you've done what you need to do to create the seal. Obviously, if it is really bad and you need to remachine, or if you're putting in brand new valves to lap them in, you may need to. It may take a bit longer to get them to lap in nicely and create that seal. Obviously, if you are putting new valves in, you will find that they may not necessarily match up with the cylinder head profiles, because the cylinder head may well have worn a bit more than obviously your new valves, so that is something to bear in mind. Of course, the other benefit of lapping the valves in is that it means that you know that the valves are going to be moving in the cylinder head. They're not going to be wedged stuck, wedged in place. That should be about there. Yeah, so you might be able to see on there, but we've got a nice line all the way around. You just, by the line I mean you can see where the paste has pulled away. We've got a nice line all the way around the valve there, and again on the inside of the seat. So I'd say that that one is now done. Basically it's a case of do the same for the inlet, but do it with this valve out. Don't do it with the valve in, just in case any paste gets across and it gets stuck in the mechanism. So you obviously need to clean out all in there, get rid of all the paste out of there, make sure it is nice and clean. You should be able to see there, hopefully, that it's looking a lot cleaner when you compare this one to that one. You can see that there's definitely a bit more of a shine to this one than the other one. So I'll now do the same with the inlet valve, and then we'll see about putting it all back together. Okie dokie, so now we should be able to see that both Valve seats are all really nice. This is the inlet valve, and as you can see, got a nice clean edge all the way around. It isn't perfect, but I don't think any of them ever are. Once they've been used, you end up with little bits of carbon on them, but we've got a nice clean surface all the way around, so that is going to seal pretty good. So now we've done that, it is all clean in there, which is obviously important. So now we can actually start looking at putting it back together. So I'll just pull it up and turn it around so you can see what I'm attempting to do. So as I said before, I cleaned up the area where they're going to go, and it's a case of now just putting it back together. So I'll just readjust the camera so you can see what I'm actually doing. So I'm going to put the inlet valve in, and refitting the valves is all exactly the same for all of them. You just got to make sure you get the right one in the right hole. So obviously the inlet valve is a bit smaller, so make sure you do get it in the smaller port and just work it through, and you should be able to see it pop out like so. Just be light a bit. Sorry, I'm just adjusting my light so I can see what I'm attempting to do, and so you guys can see as well. So now we've got the valve in and it's in nice and snug, we're going to start putting some bits back in place. First up is the bottom collar. Now you didn't see me take this out earlier, but it just sits in right at the bottom of where the springs go. Now the next piece is going to be the little rubber seal, which should fit on around the valve shaft. And to fit this, I'm just going to use some of my circlip pliers just to help pull the rubber seal around it. It just makes life a little bit easier to get it on, and then work it down the shaft. There we go. And it is one of those, it may seem a bit silly in some ways because obviously the valve goes in and out and it's going to push that seal up and down. It's just the way it is. I don't know why it's like that. I think with some of the other types, if they're not double sprung, there is a different type of seal you can get which does sort of stay in place a bit better, but that's, I'm putting it back to how it came apart. Obviously the seals and both of them were a bit they're disintegrated and disappeared over time, so that was one of those. So next one for this is going to be the small spring followed by the big spring, which should fit in the base quite nicely. So if you've got perhaps a different car, perhaps like a Morris Minor, you might find that it's only a single spring on there. It doesn't matter, different cars had different ones. This is off an MGB, so these generally had a double spring. So next up is the top collar, which as you can see is stepped, and it only goes on one way round, so all the different steps match in with the springs. So put that on, and then we're going to need our old friend, the valve spring compressor. If you just hold it in place, make sure it's in place at the back, and get it so it's gripping it. Again, because we're playing with springs, goggles on just in case anything does decide to ping off and try and take your eyes out. It won't necessarily help, but it'll be better than nothing. Alright, so let's wind that in. As I said earlier, other valve spring compressors are available. This is the one that I prefer to use. I do have another type. I just don't particularly get on well with it. I don't really know why, I just don't. Right, now we've got the two collets to go in. So these are split collets. Make sure you get them in the right way round because they are tapered, but it is a case of just wiggling them in to the top of the valve stem on both sides, and then we can slowly unwind, and the top collar should hold them in place as it all comes up under pressure. We can take string compressor off, and then it's a case of just fitting a new spring clip over the two collars, which again you might need. Oh, there we go. These will spin around a bit, but there's nothing to be worried about. All they are there is to do is just help hold things in place, and that is basically it. So I'll now do the same with the exhaust valve, and we're pretty much done. So there we are, that's how to lap in the valve, or to take the valves out, lap them in and put it all back together again. So on this one I've obviously got another cylinder's worth to do, which I probably won't take too long. I'll get that done fairly quickly now, and then obviously I'll be able to give it a final clean up and get the cylinder head back in, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be able to get the engine to breathe some life at long last. So anyway, I hope that you've enjoyed this video. If you have, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and also make sure that you give us a good old thumbs up as well. Hopefully the next video will be a quick update and roundup of generally what's been going on, and in particular hopefully the finish of the MGB, because we're very, very close to the end now, so hopefully that'll be coming out in the next week or so. So until next time, happy classic motoring.